On today's show, how good are Luka Doncic and Spencer Dinwiddie as a backcourt? We're going to rank the Western Conference backcourts in the NBA and see what makes Luka Doncic and Spencer Dinwiddie one of the best. We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavs Backcourt.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to comment anything below. Let us know, where would you rank Luka Doncic and Spencer Dinwiddie among the best Western Conference backcourts? Let us know. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the backcourt bro, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
All right, so you just told me that you went to a climbing gym today.
I did.
And
wait, hold on. How is this your start instead of like the insane flooding that happened today in Dallas?
oh God, do we want to? Are we? I don't know. How do we know how to transition to that? I mean,
well,
I was about to make a LeBron joke about like you and the chalk. This is not planned at all.
No, I thought we would make.
Let's turn the page again.
What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Rewind. This, we have needed rain forever. And
it's too good now. I can't go back. We can't erase
I know,
it.
and now we can't go back. But in all seriousness, I'm trying to bring it back because I was fully ready for like a funny joke about you being LeBron, like before you climbing the wall, throwing the powder up in the air, and then you just took it serious real quick. But no, if you do not live in Dallas, it's wild. I'm sure you guys seen the news. You've seen different things about some of the flooding downtown. So
we went without rain for like 2 months, and then got the amount of rain you would get in 1 month in 24 hours. Like some places got 10 inches of rain in 24 hours. It was like the most that Dallas County got since 1933 or 1932. It's an incredible amount of rain. So hopefully everybody out there, if you're listening in Dallas, you're okay and you didn't have any flooding, anything like that. We're hopeful for all of you guys out there. But yeah, go make your joke about the chalk.
No, I can't make that joke now. I can't make any joke right now. Let's just talk about Luka and Dinwiddie. Gosh, is this our first time bonding together?
This is the first one. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about basketball. One of the most incredible. Must be the off season.
Don't send this to a potential sponsor and be like, "Hey, this is a pod that you can buy ads with."
Yeah, Tegna's gonna pick this one up and put it on WFAA. Like,
Bill Barr's like, so about that annual ad.
All right. Well, let's talk about tiering the backcourts. We've been doing tier Tuesdays when it's me and Isaac, and so we've been going through and tiering different things. We tiered the best players, the best number one options in the NBA. We tiered best supporting cast in the NBA. Now we're going to backcourts. It's the two players that we think are the starting guards. Now, there's a lot of just positionless players, so it's sort of hard. You get to the Clippers, and you're like, okay, it's Reggie Jackson probably, but maybe it's John Wall, but it's probably Reggie Jackson. Darian Vaziri said Reggie Jackson will start. And then it's either Paul George or Kawhi. You start going back and forth. You're like, okay, who's their actual backcourt? And so we just decided between the two of us which one we thought was more of a guard and plays more like a guard throughout all of these. And so that's what we really came down to at a certain point, because we were like, well, we got to make a decision on some of these.
Yeah, because, obviously losing Jalen Brunson, now you have a new backcourt mate for Luka, and you get Spencer Dinwiddie. You get year 2 of him off the ACL injury, and we both think he's going to have monster years. We had Greg St. Jean, assistant coach of the Mavs, on the pod, probably, I guess, about a month ago at this point. And, I asked him, I was like, hey, who's one player that you think will take the biggest jump next year or see the biggest growth? And he said Dinwiddie. And it wasn't like a bench guy or like a young guy, like a Josh Green or something. He said Dinwiddie. And it was like, and he just built on that. I mean, spitting out the propaganda machine there, slightly biased propaganda. And it was just, I agree with him though. Like, I think Dinwiddie, I am all here for all the Dinwiddie propaganda. And you say that because Dinwiddie and Luka together as this backcourt mate, how good can they be? And does that tell anything? Like, does it mean anything if you can say the line, hey, Dinwiddie and Luka, they're top 5 backcourt in the West? And it's like, can you say that? Like, I mean, we'll see. Yeah. We do these rankings every Tuesday. We don't share our tiers. We don't share our tiers before we before we do the pod. So like, we'll see. But I think that's something when you go into project things, we've talked about Steph and Klay for so long, and that backcourt being together, for so long in Golden State, it's kept them, near the top for a while now. So there's something about having a dynamic backcourt in the NBA.
Oh, absolutely. And so we're gonna go through and let's just say who we have at these backcourts for each team. I'll just go in alphabetical order by team so that you guys know what the baseline is. Mavericks backcourt, Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie. Those are the 2 guards that'll start. Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will start. Golden State Warriors, Steph and Klay. You have Houston Rockets, Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. Clippers, we decided on Reggie Jackson and Paul George. Lakers, Russell Westbrook, and we think Austin Reaves, maybe Lonnie Walker, but probably Austin Reaves at this point. Memphis Grizzlies will start with John Morant and Desmond Bane as the other guard. Minnesota Timberwolves will go with D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. Pelicans, CJ McCollum and Herb Jones. Oklahoma City, Josh Giddey and SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Suns, Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Portland Trailblazers, Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons, going Dame and CJ again on them. Kings, Fox and Herter. Spurs, Trey Jones and Devin Vassell. Guess what tier they're going to be in. And then Utah Jazz, Conley and Mitchell for now. Now there's two names on here, Mitchell and Westbrook, that are probably going to get traded at some point, but we'll leave them in there for now and tier them as if they're going to start the season the way that they are. But let's start with tier 1. We each did 6 tiers, and we put them in tier. It's like ranking which buckets or which groups you think they're supposed to be in. Start with your tier 1.
Yeah, tier 1. I have 2 pairs. I have 2 teams. Why do you have your eyebrows up?
I have more than that, but
in tier 1.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you have to start, and I know this is not popular probably for this pod, but I think you have to start. I almost put them in a tier by themselves with Chris Paul and Devin Booker.
Yeah.
And I think they're up there. And then for me, I just have one other duo with them, and that's Steph and Klay, and just won a title. And that's the only 2 duos, pairings, 2 backcourts I have in tier 1, because my tier 2 has 2 also.
Okay. My tier 1 has 5 teams in it.
Oh my gosh. It was like 3 weeks ago. The last time we did a Tuesday pod together, you gave me heck because one of my tiers had like 5 or 6 teams in it.
It was like 9 teams. I just thought it was crazy that it had so many teams.
Now you have a third of the conference in one tier.
I have 5. Yeah, I have 5. I think these are all pretty similar backcourts because of what they bring in different areas. Okay.
I can't wait for this because one of these, because my tier 2 has 2 teams.
One of these is going to be in your tier 3.
Yeah, and I'm ready for this.
Okay, I told you I felt dirty about one of these, but I just think that I just consider them that good. And when I look at these, if one player is super super good, it'll vault them into another tier. Because I'm going to do that with Luka. I'm putting Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie in tier 1 because I think Luka is the best player on this list.
See, I have them third. I have them in tier 2, but I have them third. And I thought I was going to be high. And I was like, dude, no,
I put them up there.
I'm like crossing names off, and I'm like, dang, I got Luka and Dinwiddie at like the 3rd best backcourt in the West.
To me, the Dinwiddie part of it doesn't even matter as much. If Luka is better than both of the other players and sometimes combined, like what Luka just did to that Suns team compared to what the Suns team was able to do to the Mavs is like, that just puts him in the tier with them altogether. Like, you can't tell me that backcourt is better than Luka and whoever else you put with him.
But it's got to mean something though, because this goes into the whole but it kind of goes, because we're talking about backcourts, and it kind of goes into like the best But
I think Luka makes Dinwiddie better. He makes Dinwiddie better than he would be by himself. Because like when you look at backcourts,
I agree. Yeah.
When you look at backcourts, there's a way that you're ranking the 2 individual players. Like, all right, I'll give them a number, and then whatever their number equals. It's like, no, Luka gives Dinwiddie like 10 more points on his average because of how much better he makes him. And I did the same thing for the Clippers, Paul George and Reggie Jackson. I think Paul George is maybe the third best player on this list. And I put him up there with Reggie Jackson because I think that is one of the best backcourts.
You got a backcourt with Reggie Jackson in it.
Reggie Jackson's been pretty good.
As the tier one on the same level as Chris Paul, Booker.
That should say more about what I think about Chris Paul and Booker than it says about these other backcourts. And my other one is Memphis with Jamal Morant and Desmond Bane.
I agree with you at that. My tier 1 is Suns and Warriors. My tier 2 is Mavs and Grizzlies with Jamal Morant and Desmond Bane. And then my tier 3 has 4 teams in it. But it kind of goes in. What I was going to say a while ago is it goes into the young core thing. When people rank young cores, and it's like, well, Dallas has to be number 1. They got the best young core in the league. They got Luka Doncic. Well, it's like, but core, you are ranking a group of players. And that's why in this category, it's like we're ranking backcourts too. I just couldn't get Paul George and Reggie Jackson there because the drop off from the second guy, like I think Dinwiddie is a much better player than Reggie Jackson. And so I think Desmond Bane's a better player than Reggie Jackson. And so it's like, I just couldn't get there with the
But I think Paul George is a better player than maybe some of these other players. And so I think that he vaults them up there. And that's the one I felt dirty about. I was like, I don't know about this.
You should feel dirty for that one.
I don't know about this. They could be in tier 2, but I just feel like
dirty to me.
I just feel like they're that good.
Okay.
That's just me. That's just me. Coming up, let's get into the rest of these tiers. Where else do people fall? And then what makes Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie a number 1 tier or a number 2 tier team? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about something we've been talking about for a while. Truebill. It changed its name to Rocket Money, and we'll tell you why. It's our favorite financial app. They now are backed by Rocket companies, and they've grown from a bill management app into a full-on personal finance empowerment tool. Remember Truebill? It lets you cancel subscriptions that you had, and it lets you go in and see, oh, I'm wasting my money on this, or I'm still spending this subscription that I had with a trial. Well, now Truebill is Rocket Money, and Rocket Money will help you with over tons and tons of different tools: budgeting, lowering bills, canceling subscriptions, and more, saving each of their members on average $700 a year. And with all that growth comes the next evolution in Truebill's story, a new name. Bottom line, Rocket Money is everything that we love about Truebill, but with a fresh look and feel. Start canceling your unused subscriptions and save money at rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA, or download the app from the App Store or Google Play. All right, Isaac Harris, we're tiering the best backcourts. So we're basically ranking the best backcourts in the Western Conference. And you only had 2 teams in your tier 1. You had the Suns and you're the Warriors. You did not put the Mavericks in your tier 1. I have 5 teams in my tier 1, and I put the Mavericks up there. Why are the Mavericks not one of the top backcourts to you?
Well, you word it like that.
I will.
Because I have them 3rd in the West, and I just don't have them in the same.
We're tiering. You can't say 3. You can't say 3. We're putting them in tiers. This is your whole thing.
Yeah, but I love Dinwiddie. This is going to be so weird because I feel like I'm on that first car on the train of trying to push forward the big Dinwiddie season. It's just I can't put him on
slashing the tires on your car. You got to tell us why.
I just can't put him on the same level as a backcourt that just won the title with Steph and Klay. And I think Klay's going to be even better next year, another year back, from the injuries. And with Chris Paul, the book, I look at it in the sense of Booker, Steph, Luka. And it's all right, Luka's better than the other 2 players. Sorry, Cyrus, don't listen to that. But so for me, it comes down to Chris Paul, Klay, Dinwiddie. And it's I love Dinwiddie, but I feel like I'm in the majority of other people around the league that would not put Dinwiddie on the same level as Klay and Chris Paul. And that's why I just have a slight tier difference. And I have them with Memphis right there in that tier 2.
If it was Brunson, what would you do?
Probably same. Yeah, probably same.
Okay.
A little bit of its projection too with Dinwiddie that I feel like some non-Mavs fans could listen to this, or somebody could clip it and be like, "Locked on Mavs, you're biased. You have Mavs as the 3rd best backcourt in the West." And it's I feel like non-Mavs fans would be listening to saying, "Y'all are drinking the Dinwiddie Kool-Aid hard for next season." And it's because there's a little bit of projection in it, right? We're projecting a little bit of a little bit step forward for Dinwiddie for a full season, all of that. We only had him for how many ever games last year after the trade. He had, the back-to-back stuff and all of that. So we're projecting a little bit because there's a world that he comes in, he's kind of inconsistent, and we look kind of dumb that we have him up there in the same like category as, some of these other guys. But
that's where he is at this point. So the only one that we're different on as far as our top teams is I have the Clippers in that top group and you don't.
Correct. Yeah. And going back kind of full circle to the beginning, I think it's safe to say the Mavericks have a top 5 backcourt in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
And I think that will be something that I will reference going into the season as we do a million preview things, and we'll do random guests on different shows or radio hits or whatever it is. And I will reference that a ton. Mavericks have a top 5 backcourt in the West. And because of that, and because of a big season coming from Dinwiddie that we believe it's going to happen, I think the floor for Dallas will be so high this season, and they'll be a good regular season team. They need depth behind it, but starting backcourt, it'll be a really good starting backcourt in the West. So for me, the Clippers, I'm in tier 3. I have 3 other teams with them in tier 3.
Okay.
I have Portland, I have New Orleans, and I have Utah as currently constructed.
Oh, you do not have the Timberwolves up there.
No.
Interesting. No. That's the only other team that I have in my tier 2. Now we're basically just like your tier 1, 2, and 3 are my 1 and 2 basically, and the only difference we have there is I have the Timberwolves in that tier 2.
Yeah. So Ben Stannard, tell me what you like about D'Angelo Russell.
I give credit if I think one player is way better, and I think Anthony Edwards is incredible. It's going to take another step forward next year for sure. I think Kermit really lifts the weight in that. I could say the same thing about what do you think about the Utah Jazz? Why are the Jazz there and not the Timberwolves?
Well, I've actually seen Donovan Mitchell put up 50 in a playoff game. And Anthony Edwards, has he played in a playoff game? I don't know.
He played in a playoff game.
But no, I mean, that's where it comes down for me, of the fact of it was easier to do these tiers based off categories instead of like tearing them off based on like who's the best. That it gets harder doing that, because for me, this group was star player with like semi-role player running mate. So it's like Paul George, Damian Lillard, CJ, Donovan Mitchell, and then insert the running mate. For me, it's like Anthony Edwards. You can project him. If he ends up in that same category, it makes sense. I love him. I can't put him on the same level as like Paul George right now with that.
And neither did I. But you're really down on D'Angelo Russell that he pulled him down away from the rest of that group.
Yeah, well, I just think Anthony Edwards is really young, and I'm not the biggest fan of D'Angelo Russell. So I'm like, all right, I need a big leap from Ant this season for me to put him on that, to call him a top 5 to 7 backcourt in the West. I can't call him a top 5 to 7 backcourt in the West.
Let's go through the rest of our tiers real quick, and then we'll talk about what Luka and Dinwiddie can do to get into that tier 1 this next year for you, or to separate themselves from the rest of these. So the rest of mine, I have my tier 3 is the Nuggets with Jamal Murray and KCP, the Kings with Fox and Herter, and OKC with Giddey and SGA.
That one was, I think, the hardest one for me on here was SGA and Giddey, because they're kind of in the same category a little bit as Ant, in the sense of good young players I'm super high on. And I'm just higher on SGA and Giddey, higher than I am for like Russell. They're obviously younger than Russell, but it was just, I was so hard. Like I didn't know what to do with them. So I put them on the same category. I put Russell and Anthony Edwards together with Jamal Murray and KCP as like a separate tier.
That's a good one. Yeah. Jamal Murray to me is tough because we just don't know. Like we think, like I've listened to Locked On Nuggets guys, and they're like, if anybody's going to come back from this injury, the way he works and the way that he's come back from things before, it's Jamal Murray. And I'm like, okay, cool. I just would like to see it first before I put him into the tier 2 category, but that backcourt should be really, really good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about Denver's additions a lot, but I think they had such an underrated offseason of Bruce Brown, KCP, some of these like pieces they added to their core, and obviously they're getting Porter Jr. back and Jamal Murray. I think they're going to be an incredible regular season team. So, and I think KCP is a great like fit for them defensively and everything.
Solid.
3-and-D guy. I guess I'm a little lower on Fox and Herter than you are. I have Fox and Herter in tier 5
by themselves.
No, I have them with Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. I'm sorry. I put your Lakers with the Spurs in the bottom.
So the rest of my tiers go like this: 4, just the Rockets, 5 just the Lakers, and 6 just the Spurs. I front loaded mine, and then the last ones are just like those by themselves because those are just rough. And the Lakers one is so weird because like Westbrook's putting
what's weird about it?
He's putting up stats.
They both suck.
He's putting up stats like the ones in tier 2. It's just the results aren't there, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna take those as empty stats, and everybody hates you, and I'm just gonna throw you into tier 5.
I just love that I texted you and I was like, "Hey, who do you got for the Spurs backcourt?" And then I'm like, "It doesn't matter."
I didn't respond, and then you're like, "Never mind, they're in tier 6."
I just put Spurs down, and whatever we ranked supporting cast a few weeks ago, and I just put Spurs. I'm not even.
You didn't even write the names.
McDermott, Josh Richardson. But no, sorry. Lakers just suck, man. Like their backcourt. So
it does. It very much does. You can say that as much as you want, and I know you do.
The Lakers suck. Their backcourt sucks.
You and Bill Simmons can keep doing that. All right, coming up, what do Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie have to do together collectively to become a top tier backcourt? We'll talk about that coming up. All right, Isaac Harris, you don't have Luka and Dinwiddie as a tier 1 backcourt. What can they do this year? What can they do this year to vault themselves into tier 1 category? For you, like specifically for you, since
I love this.
Since you didn't put them there.
This is incredible. So for Dinwiddie, I keep on going back to pre-ACL Dinwiddie. That season right before that 1920 season. He was 26. He averages 31 minutes a game. He's right at 21 points a game. And like that Brooklyn season, there were some conversations of, is he going to be like the all-star team?
Yeah.
Like if you go back to some of that. And so, when you look at all the ACL stuff and you're like, all right, hey, first year back, we've talked about that a million times. When we traded for him, he was on the plan. And, Dinwiddie saying after the trade, Washington gave up on me in 33 games. Like they gave him the contract. He was thankful for that. But it's like, he played 33 games for him that, last season, and then they just traded him. And I just think that I think defensively, if you're looking at the comparison to him to Brunson, and I know some Mavs fans have already turned the page, you're like, hey, he's just going to be better than Brunson. And there's some bias stuff into that. And it's like, hey, I'm with you on fandom and just loving Dinwiddie on the Mavs next year. But I think realistically, I think you'll be able to say that he's definitely going to be a bigger body that'll be better defensively in the backcourt. And however you want to feel, like what's their main goal going into next season right now, how the roster is constructed, all of that, they're probably going to focus on defense. They did last year, especially early on. It's like, hey, let's just clamp down on defense. We've got a big starting lineup. And I just think he's going to have a big time season, and they're going to be better defensively. And we haven't even talked about the Luka angle of this, but I think Luka's going to be in MVP form. We're going to see him dominate Eurobasket and have a lot of fun with it. And I think he's going to be more as motivated as ever coming into a season. And I just think it's setting up for a recipe to be a dynamic, really fun backcourt. And I don't know. For me, it's like, hey, you asked what would vault him into tier 1. I don't, there's not a ton. I guess it's just Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie would just have to play in like a near all-star type of form and be the secondary guy that's averaging 20 points a game and taking another leap. And they're a top 4 team in the West. I guess that's what it would have to be.
I think it would definitely have to take Dinwiddie taking that step, like you said, being that productive guard, with also, you consider the amount of threes he's going to get that he can probably shoot. If he shot the percentage he did last year, he's going to get there, right? Like he's going to score a ton if he shot the same percentage he did last year from 3, like 40%. I don't know if that's sustainable for him considering the rest of his career, but from the open threes he's going to get, the gravity that Luka's going to take from him that Spencer Dinwiddie really has never had in his career. He's going to get a ton of opportunity to show that he can be like a solid, borderline like fringe all-star-y type, candidate, and that'll vault them up to that next level because it is Spencer. If you're going to look at them, Luka Doncic is doing everything in that pairing. Like that's the group assignment, the group project in school where like one person is doing everything and the other one is just like over there like looking at TikTok.
Yeah, and his 3-point shooting is going to be the thing that you're going to have to watch. Yeah. Like, can he, when they're running a lot of stuff through Luka, can he knock down the catch and shoot shots? And could Christian Wood, what is his role? Will that kind of play into his stats some? Because so like just off the top of my head, I was trying to think. I was like, all right, well, what's another like dynamic backcourt over the past few years? I don't know why I thought about this first, but I look back at like Brad Beal, John Wall, Wizards. And it's like, what was the scoring breakdown of that? Because both creating type of guys, because Dinwiddie's not a Klay Thompson. Like we know that. He's not a Desmond Bane. He's not that type of, he's not a Herb Jones. He's not that type of, even like a Chris Paul in a way, because I think he's gonna be going for a shot a little more than what Chris Paul does in Phoenix. But it's like you look at like those Washington teams. John Wall averaged 23, Bill averaged 23. It's not going to be as even like that in Dallas. Like Luka's going to get his 28, 29, 30. But can Dinwiddie get to 20? Can they sustain that? And can that be something they like build a foundation on? And or will Christian Wood / Tim Hardaway score? I want to say
who's going to be going to be the second leading scorer on the team? It's
Dinwiddie.
That's going to be a big question because I could see Christian Wood or Hardaway sneaking in there.
Oh no. I think it's clearly Dinwiddie. That will be the second like highest score. It's just a matter of like what's the margin, like how far, what's the difference of that?
Man.
Well, I think the question is who's the third leading scorer? Is it Tim Hardaway? Is it Christian Wood? And what's the difference between Dinwiddie and them? I'm fascinated by that.
I think it's more so if Dinwiddie is not the second leading scorer, something went wrong, right?
If he's not, yeah, there's a problem.
Which I think could happen. Like he could be like not very like productive or efficient in his scoring, and then that makes him less productive of a scorer. And maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. goes on a tear, or Christian Wood finally gets to play with a real point guard and like goes nuts and averages 22 a game or something like that. And then all of a sudden it's something else, But yeah, by the way, Dinwiddie was 9th in East backcourt all-star voting, like the composite from the players, fans, media, and all that. He got more points than Jalen Brown, Van Vliet, Eric Bledsoe, then Dragic. Is that somebody the Mavs were interested in at one point? I don't know. Tyler Hero.
This cheerleading role.
Yeah, so he was up there. He was like the fringe of the fringe, but it was still up there as a potential all-star that year.
Interesting.
What about these others? Do you see any of these other backcourts rising or falling this year? Because I love Steph and Klay, and I love Booker and Chris Paul as like a duo, but Chris Paul and Klay are both candidates for like regression or like breaking down at some point during their career. Because I don't think Klay looked that good last year, even like not even until they played the Mavs. Basically, until he played the Mavs, I didn't think that he was incredible. Like that he added to Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that backcourt right now.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, you're looking at the rest of the guys saying, all right, who's the next like pair? Is there another pairing out there? Because not too many teams like embrace it. Not too many teams do the Portland experience and say, hey, we're just going to embrace CJ and Dame.
Where your two max guys are backcourt guys. Like this like on this list, it's Chris Paul and Booker, Steph and Klay.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Dame and Simons are kind of, but not really.
I mean, if you want to do money-wise, Mitchell and Conley are, but Conley's just getting a little older. So there's not a bigger pairing in that. I mean, you can look at John, Desmond Bane, depending on where you put Desmond Bane's ceiling. Did you know he played at TCU? I didn't know if you knew that. But you just look down through it and it's like, Reggie Jackson, I wouldn't sit here and try to debate like what his ceiling is. I think and the same for like D'Angelo Russell. I think that the three that I'm looking at, like Houston's a little far away. I mean, I guess you can put OKC in that Houston category, saying like, hey, if everything goes right, y'all can have like fun season. But it's these two. It's Lillard and Simons. It's CJ McCollum and Herb Jones. Of like, if Herb Jones continues, but if Herb Jones can take another step forward and be like, I mean, he was already like a good perimeter defensive guy, but like if he can take another step and it's like, oh, you're like one of the best 3-and-D guys in the league, and CJ continues his streak, it's like, okay, you kind of see that. Or if like Anthony Simons coming off a big payday for him, like if he takes a big step forward as this like young athletic guy next to Dame and Dame comes back healthy, is Dame a superstar? I don't know.
But is
Joe
Flacco elite?
The superstar stuff is so funny to me because I'm like, guys, like there's no way of winning this argument. Everybody has a different definition of what a superstar is.
My favorite one was the Dragonfly Jones one today, where he was like on Twitter, he was like, what players could your parents name? And I was like, all right, well, that's just 3. That's Steph, LeBron, and Durant, maybe.
Oh, that's not it. No.
That's like, if we're really cutting it off there, my parents can name Luka because they know me, and our parents to me. Other than that, they would not know him, that he existed.
That would be going off your Kyle Kuzma rankings then.
Those are stars right there.
But let's, like, everybody has their different definition of a superstar. We saw that when Mark Cuban said that about Russ. And then I was like, well, he's not a superstar. Mark's that. Well, it's like, all right, well, if your definition of a superstar is winning a title and like being a lead guy on a title winning team, then okay, well, there you go. Steph, Giannis, whatever.
Shout out to Taylor Rooks for literally saying that straight to Jason Tatum's face.
She's great. I think she's one of the best like interview people in all of media. I think she's awesome. But anyway, I think it's full circle to the beginning. I think it's safe to say that Dallas has a top 5 backcourt in the West. If you want to push it a step forward and say top 3, but I think you can say that and also admit you're doing a little projection with Spencer Dinwiddie.
Or you're just giving Luka that much credit. He is the best player on this list. If you go through all of them, Steph Curry, Booker, Paul George, Chris Paul, John Morant, Anthony Edwards, like you're starting to go through, and I really believe he is the best player on this list. Hey, come at me, Warriors fans.
Cyrus, let us know how you feel.
Oh, they'll just throw the title back in the face. That's okay.
Are we too high on Luka Dinwiddie backcourt? Let us know in the comments there. Since we're saying, we're basically saying they're a top 3 backcourt in the West. Is there anybody in the comments you think we're too dumb, you think we're too biased, or you think don't tell me if you haven't won, don't tell me that. But because I'm saying, okay. All
right, let us know in the comments. Let us know where you would rank those guys. Tomorrow, we'll be back with our what ifs. Let us know in the comments, too, if you have a good what if. Let us know about that. And, we'll be here 5 days a week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Go listen to Locked On NBA.
Hello.
Boom.